We've been arguing about who's going to start this thing. You start.
Just like old time. No, you start.
No, you go first.
Okay.
Say good morning or hello.
Good morning. Hello. I'm Alexa Conomos
and I'm Ron Corning.
What
brings you here, of all people, to this place?
To Maplewood.
Yeah, to the Maplewood Club here. Yeah, it's amazing that you and I have not sat in this way in front of a camera for a very long time, and people have been asking me. I've only told a few people that we were doing this, and they said, well, what is this about? And I said, it's sort of like Seinfeld. It's a podcast about nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
And if I'm going to talk about nothing, I'd rather do it with you than anyone else.
I know. You know, it's been a really interesting year plus since we last sat together, and
Yes.
I always thought we were not done, that we were going to do it again. I didn't know under what context or format, but I'm happy to be here with you
I'm
today.
happy to be here as well. And that's the interesting thing that we're going to talk about this during this podcast. What do you do the morning after a big change in your life? What do you do when you've either made a decision that it's time for a life change, or in some cases, people make the decision for you, and it seems like a bad thing, and maybe it's exactly what you need. And on that note, I do want to talk to people who are watching here, who might watch News 8 Daybreak and wonder why I was on the show and then I wasn't on the show with a proper goodbye after 8 years of contributing to what I thought was a really great television station and a great morning show. I could tell you, it's complicated, but it really isn't all that complicated. The decision was made in part by me and in part by them that it was no longer the right place for me. And I felt it leading up to it. There were signs that for whatever reason, I had outgrown it. My contributions weren't valued anymore. They were going in a different direction. And it was a bit of a slow burn and a bit of a realization. And I had to really do some soul searching, because whether I stayed or whether I went, I had to find some joy. And I'd lost the joy in it, but I didn't want to be a quitter and I didn't want to give up. My dad woke up in the dark and went to bed at night, came home in the dark from work, 12-hour days, manual labor, much of his 50-year career in construction. So I was never one to complain about the hours, but in all honesty, the hours can be difficult. But it was a sacrifice I was willing to make. And in deciding that time was up, I had to really do some soul searching. And so I'm here now in a new opportunity, one of many. And that's the great thing about this business that we're in, is that when it's over, it's not really over. We can reinvent ourselves. We can find other ways to take our skills of communicating and share them with you, like this podcast from On Air Media. They contacted us and said, the two of you have something and you're no longer together. And we separately thought to ourselves, we miss each other. And so it's a new age and a new dawn. And here we are, after mornings and the morning after, talking about life changes and what it really means.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think that's such an appropriate thing to talk about that so many people can relate to, because I think that everybody wants at some point to get their second wind or start something new, have a chapter 2, reinvent themselves.
Right.
But the idea of doing so is so daunting, and not everyone may have that opportunity. But I think the one thing that is true that my grandmother used to always say, change is good.
Yeah.
Change is good, because it always forces, a series of things in your life to alter. And perhaps things have altered in a way that you never could have imagined, but are better for you in the end game.
Yeah. In the case with Daybreak, as you know, I came on board. You and I worked together for 7 years. 7 years? Why do you laugh? Because it felt like 70?
In dog years? No, because those were some of the most fun years.
Yeah.
I mean, I laugh because I think about all of the things that we did together that were, I think, really unique, really fun, and in many ways cutting edge for morning news.
Yeah,
because we got to be us.
I think it's important for people to know that the decision that I wasn't going to be at Channel 8 was made in December, and I kept it to myself. With rare exceptions, I shared it with close friends and family. And so for 3 months, I went to work every day, like I always did, enthusiastic, passionate. When the light came on, I was on. But the truth is, in your absence, I did not have the the kind of moral support, the kind of partnership that made it joyful. It became a job, it became just a paycheck. And I had some guilt when I made the change and I left. I had this nagging guilt that this is something my dad never had the chance to do. Because we were working class and he was supporting a family. And I actually shared that with him and with my mother.
Who you recently just saw.
Who I recently just saw. And my mother said, your father always wanted you to have a better life than he had. And the fact that you're able to do this and take time and figure it out is a better life, is a better way. He never had that option. So, I don't have children, I don't have a family. I've made a decent amount of money for a long enough time. I've made smart decisions. So I can afford myself the opportunity to take the time I need, not to say yes to the first thing that comes along. And as I said to Ed Bark in the departure column, there are other things I want to do and accomplish. There are ideas I have that weren't received where I was, right? And there are many people out there who are working in jobs where their ideas aren't received. They don't have a seat at the table, and they have to continue on. And I didn't have to, and I wasn't going to. And when it comes to joy in the workplace or joy in your life, I want to read something that I have here. This is a quote from Cheryl Strayed, who said, I once wrote a letter to my younger self and told the younger me, it's okay to rewrite my story from time to time. And not only okay, but necessary. Sometimes you have to see things through, even though they don't cause you joy. But sometimes you need to say, you know what? I'm not going to surrender my joy. I'm not going to be this thing anymore. That story is no longer true. I'm going to be this other thing, this other way. And sometimes things do change in a way. I'm adaptable, but sometimes the people you're working for are not adaptable to you. It's just part of life.
It is, and I think it's important to realize that we're all adaptable in so many ways. I think I kind of grew up with that. As a daughter of first-generation Americans, I had that immigrant mentality of this is just what you do. You pick a career,
right.
You've prepared for this career, you've invested in this career, and that's all you do. And so while you were saying, no kids, I'm married, have 3 children, and there were conversations of, for so many years, and my time at Channel 8.
I was privy to many of them.
Yeah, waking up at 3 a.m. and having 3 children really became just the schedule became difficult, because for me, I kind of felt like I'm giving my best first thing in the morning, and then when I see my kids and my husband after, I'm so tired that they're kind of giving the leftovers. But yet, I too had that mentality of, well, this is just the way it is. This is what I do. And I think that, if people like us can say, you know what, we invested a lot, but we're going to reinvent ourselves in some way that allows us to have the freedom to be creative and productive in a way that makes us happy, which is something I think that our parents never really considered an option for them. Happiness it wasn't like a necessity. That was a luxury. And I think for our generation, our happiness is really important. I think that if we can do it, really anybody can do it, but you have to have a lot of faith. And I really do believe the last year and a half has taught me, you just got to keep putting logs in the fire.
Yeah.
You just got to keep it burning, because you never know when you start putting out a lot of good things and a lot of good energy, and you start connecting with other people, so much of that comes back to you. And I really learned in the year that we were apart, that when I approach things with a spirit of gratitude, because it's so easy to approach things with fear, the fear of failure, the fear of what if none of this works out. But when you approach things with a spirit of gratitude, so much comes your way.
I know what people are saying, though. They're saying it's different if you can afford to take the time to figure it out. We're not suggesting you have to quit your job.
No.
But we are suggesting you might have to double down a little bit and make some other sacrifices. Continue working the job you have while you look at other things and start to realize perhaps there's another place for you. And yes, that's a tough balancing act, especially if you have family and children in difficult hours. But I know people who've done it without the financial means and reinvented themselves and found ways. And we're going to talk about that and continue to talk about that here on this podcast. When we come back, what do you do the morning after a big change in your life? What are the obstacles you face? And look who's, hey. We'll be right back.
So welcome back to the Morning After with Ron and Alexa. We're at Maplewood, by the way. This is such a cool place. This is a private club, drinking club, and eating, but emphasis on the drinking, near Inwood Road and UT Southwestern. It's really a cool little speakeasy that a lot of people are just learning about. Really the coolest speakeasy that we've seen in a long time, private club. So if you're lucky enough, Ron, to get an invitation, I don't know if it's going to happen for you,
Really?
but if it does, I would seriously consider
Well, I would say this. When I left Channel 8 on March 15th, I went to happy hour.
And you never came
and
back.
I've never left. I've been sitting.
Well, it looks good on you.
I have never left happy hour since.
See,
And
you
we
have
were
to shave or
talking.
have-
We
for
were
a
talking,
happy
and I
hour?
have not shaved clearly either. By the way, this is brought to you by Just for Men.
Yeah, it's not November. Don't need to check your calendar.
There was a little gray in it last night, but I fixed it. So we're doing this thing called. We want to thank our viewers, by the way, from Daybreak, who I've heard from many of them about missing us together. So if that's the case, then thank you for watching. And if you didn't like us together, well, we can't change your mind. So that's what I've learned. You can't
This is
please.
saying he doesn't care.
And I don't care if you didn't like us, because you can't please everyone. All right, so we're doing this thing called One and Done. So On Air Media put out a social media call.
Wait, is
for
this a
people.
drinking game?
It could be. Would you like to? Shots? Wouldn't be the first time we've drank together.
This time we'll do it sober.
All right.
Okay, hit
This
me.
time. So we put out a social media call for like hot topics, interesting, awkward social situations or various things. And here's what we got from the team here. At a big party last weekend, a guy kept ordering expensive bottles of wine. When the check comes, how do you handle it? Do you split it or call him out and put it on him? Love viewer number 712. We're giving viewers numbers like they're prisoners.
Tattooed.
Thank you,
Okay,
number
so that's
712.
the first time I'm
Cell
hearing
block
this.
C.
I can see exactly how this would go. I'll answer first and you
Okay.
answer.
I've had this experience.
Okay. So if I'm there with my husband, there's me going internally going from 0 to 60 within 10 seconds. I'm mad. I'm thinking it's wrong. He should pay for it. And there's my husband going, "Shh, don't say a word. Don't say a word. Just let it be."
Okay.
So we would not agree. I would think
So how would you resolve it? Because eventually a check comes and money has to be given. And so how do you handle that?
See, I would be kicking around the table. and
So you
he'd
put
be-
it all on him. So what would happen is he would end up splitting it and not saying a word.
Probably.
But he'd say to you, we're never going to socialize with that person again.
Yeah, he'd probably be mad afterward, and I probably wouldn't hear the end of it in the car ride home.
Okay.
But he'd probably,
So you have,
yeah.
this
Your
speaks more
husband
really
would-
to your marriage and the state that you're in there than it does about.
Or the fact that he's a wine
guy-
guy.
yeah.
The fact that he's a wine guy, and it's like, you don't touch
He
that.
frankly wouldn't care that it was an expensive bottle because he likes expensive
He'd
wine.
be drinking, yeah.
Yeah, so you're not the one to ask about this.
Yeah.
In my situation, I remember I was out with a group of friends, and we ended up meeting up with another group of people, and there was that one person at the table who kept ordering like $150 bottle of wine. When the check came, he said to the waiter, split it among the table. There were 10 of us, I think. Well, I felt so bad for the people that I was with because, I knew that that was beyond what they wanted to budget for the
Right.
evening. And then I felt responsible that we split it. And then I actually gave them each some money to say, I'm sorry, I feel like this is partly my fault. So we had like 3 shishito peppers from an appetizer plaza and a platter and a glass of wine. And it cost me like $300. But I made a decision. I'm just never going to socialize with that person again. But what happens when it's a repeated thing? generally speaking, when I go out, I'm not one to think, well, they had 2 drinks and they had 1 drink and they ordered an appetizer, but I didn't have an appetizer. I'm generally okay in a large group of people if you're kind of having the same experience. You're there for the experience, splitting it evenly. But if there's that one person who orders that one expensive thing, I think it's just in poor taste.
I agree, and I think it's important. I've sort of learned the hard way also that when you are going out to dinner with somebody, or you're getting a bunch of somebodies together and you're sort of like the common link, you really got to be thoughtful who you are pairing together or know what you're getting into.
No, I think generally everybody out there who socializes, they socialize with the same people on a regular basis, and they all share kind of the same approach to how you split the check. It's when you get in that one situation with that one couple or that one person that you've never socialized with before. And in my case, I really felt like the guy who did this was doing it on purpose because he'd done it before, where it's almost like he's gonna have this experience and he's gonna put it off on everyone else unabashedly. Unabashedly.
He's evil.
He's basically evil.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Well,
so
I can't
people
wait to
show
find
their
out
true
who this
colors. What
was.
does that say about that person and what they're generally like in a relationship even?
Yeah, it says
Break
a lot
it down
about them.
for us.
Well, I mean, I think when you are looking deeper into the issue, you're talking about someone who's probably pretty self-centered.
Inconsiderate.
Or who's very inconsiderate.
Yeah, self-serving, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, and we're going to continue to put out these calls for various hot topics. We're going to call it One and Done, and so that's one and done.
Yeah, so keep sending them to us, keep surprising us, because
We like surprises. We'll be right back. If you're wondering where we're broadcasting from for this edition of Morning After, we are at Maplewood, a private social club, a beautiful bar and restaurant. For information on membership, go to maplewooddallas.com.
welcome back to Morning After. I love saying that with Ron and Alexa. It's kind of a fun take on the big changes that we've had, both of us in our lives, and the fact that we're together again. We had so many viewers reaching out to us saying, you know, we missed those days, and so we thought, well, we're just going to give you what you want.
And isn't it interesting that 12, 15 years ago, especially before YouTube, this would not be a platform. You and I would not have this opportunity. We wouldn't have the opportunity to be washed up. and still pretending we were important.
Be honest. When did you learn what a podcast was?
Oh, I knew what a podcast was because I think there was wasn't you guys a first generation of podcasts on 04, 05 when people were downloading them to their iPods? Do you remember the iPod?
Yeah, barely. For like
I know a lot of
30
people in New York who used to commute on the train who would say, oh, I was listening to this podcast. But then they made a comeback recently with true crime and other genres. And that's the thing about our podcast. We really don't know what it's about.
It's a podcast about nothing. But the important thing for you to know is that nothing's going to happen every Thursday at 10 a.m. So we hope you'll join us. And you know, let's be honest, we're really just kind of finding our groove with this first one. We kind of started, you know, explaining us being together again, but we're going to be tackling some really fun topics. We're going to be having a lot of really cool guests on.
And this may not seem like a fun topic because we started out by talking about what you do the morning after you've had a life change, specifically a job change. Maybe it's your decision, maybe it's not. What I decided to do when it came to my life change is not look at how the last year was different and was a bit of a struggle and joyless, but rather look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But it was torture. But what I'm trying to say is, I worked there for 8 years, 3 contracts, a big raise in the middle of it, great projects, 260 charity events, met great people, interviewed interesting people from all walks of life. All of that is positive, and you take that with you.
You do.
And I know I'm sounding very like Brene Brown, very like Oprah, The Path Made Clear, which by the way is a great book that I've been reading. But it really is true that if you say, I am frustrated, or I am exhausted, or then you manifest that. But if you say, I am grateful, I am worthwhile, I have a lot more to offer, then I think those opportunities come your way. And that's kind of what has happened here with us.
Yeah, like we were talking, spirit of gratitude.
Right.
So we're grateful that we have brought people with us here today, and they can reach out to us in a lot of other ways as well.
Yeah, you can hop onto all of our social media pages for at AM After Live. That's on Instagram. It's on Facebook. We're going to send that out on our personal Facebook and Instagram pages at Ron Corning. Are you at Alexa Conomos now?
I am. That was another change.
You dropped the WFAA from that conveniently. So yeah, please reach out to us and let us know what your story is. And in the weeks to come, we hope to share them. So sleep on it, and we'll see you the morning after.
Clever.